Welcome back to the Online Franchise League with the Chicago Bears, and this is Season 2. If you didn't already know, the Dallas Cowboys faced the Baltimore Ravens in the Super Bowl, and the Cowboys, yes, the Cowboys, came away with the victory and earned their first Super Bowl in the Legacy franchise. Now, since then, we have been really busy here in Chicago with the offseason, with free agency, with the draft, and trying to put our team together with the salary cap that we have. Now, the offseason in Legacy isn't like an offseason that you would face whenever you're going up against a computer, like a single-person franchise. Our offseason uses calculators, silent bids, and you have to go up against 31 other users to try to come away with quality players to build your team. It's not easy to do, and winning in the offseason is just as big as winning in the regular season. Now, with all of that being said, let's look at the Chicago Bears roster heading into year 2. And we remember this guy, Mitchell Trubisky. He gave us some highs, he gave us some lows, and he earned a 3-year contract extension in which he turned around and threw for 5,000 yards last year and was the 4th best wide receiver in the NFC. Needless to say, he will be leading our team in year 2, and I feel very confident that he can improve on those numbers that he had last season and maybe take us deeper into the playoffs. Now, we decided to keep Nick Foles on the roster for at least one more season based on the cap penalty and what was out there in free agency. So he'll be coming back, and I doubt he'll get in the game unless Mitchell Trubisky gets hurt, which we hope he doesn't. But if he does, Nick Foles isn't too bad of a backup. Now, who is this I see? Todd Gurley. He made his way to Chicago via free agency, and we picked him up on a decent-sized contract after Atlanta Falcons let him go. Last season, I felt like we were missing that 1-2 punch, and bringing Todd Gurley in means that we have added somebody who can run between the tackles and can also catch out of the backfield. Now, we did kind of have that with Patterson, but Patterson was already 29 years old, and I didn't want to invest in the future into somebody that old. Todd Gurley is coming in at 27 years old and has all the numbers we look for in a running back that goes along with Tariq Cohen. Now, Tariq Cohen's going to be back, and he's going to be just as good as he was before. And between these two guys, I believe we're going to have a really good backfield in Chicago this season. Now, I did something in the draft I usually don't do. I drafted a fullback, Deion Watson. Now, at that time, we were going best available, and I wanted to find somebody that could possibly come in and make a starting impact. So enter Watson, and his numbers weren't exactly what I thought they would be, so the chances are we're going to have to build him up to be that role I wanted him to be in. Wide receivers. Now, does that list look a little bit different to you? No Allen Robinson. We decided to go ahead and let him go, and he went off to the Atlanta Falcons, so it seems like we did a Gurley for Robinson swap. Now, Anthony Miller is the number 1 wide receiver on this list, but he's not going to be the number 1 wide receiver in game, as that will go to Miles Boykin, who we traded for in the offseason with the Baltimore Ravens. Now, in my opinion, Miles Boykin brings all the things that you need in a number 1 wide receiver. You don't need flash, you don't need anything crazy, you don't even need top-tier speed. I feel like getting somebody that goes and gets the ball and makes all the tough catches is somebody that you need in that number 1 spot. And as you can see, he has 88 catch, 87 catch in traffic, and 86 spectacular catch. And this boy is 6'4", 220 pounds. Definitely the makings of a number 1 wide receiver if I've ever seen one. And then we have Speedy Darnell Mooney, who also has really good catch in traffic and good spectacular catch. This guy will most likely be our number 2, who is going to stretch the field as he did last year. He's definitely looking to make another step towards being a great wide receiver. Javon Wims likely won't factor into the plans this year as he did last year, but he's a big body wide receiver that does have pretty decent catching numbers. The next 2 guys, Khalif Raymond and Deon Cain, were free agent pickups because we were looking to add more speed with guys that also had pretty decent catching ability. Now, I believe that Deon Cain, being at 25 years old, was kind of a steal because he was really cheap and still has plenty of room to grow. Now, he may not do anything with this, but he may, so this was a wild card that we were willing to take a gamble on. At the tight end position, you have Cole Kmet, who looks to build on his rookie campaign where he was just slaying people. We're going to continue to work on him to turn him into one of the best tight ends in the game, and maybe along the way he'll win an award or two. Now, Jake Butt and Chris Manhurst were brought in because they each had particular skills. Jake Butt is more of a backup role tight end. They can block a little bit, can catch a little bit, so he's not too far off of commit as far as those skills are concerned. Chris Manhurst was more of the blocker who's going to be playing the fullback position and playing more in the power formations. Strictly backup depth guys. Now, as far as the offensive line is concerned, not much really changed. Charles Leno is still going to be our left tackle as he is aging at 29 and we may have to replace him over the next couple years. Cody Whitehair will be our starting left guard who is also 29, so we are getting up there in age. Now, Bradley Bozeman was thought to be a throw-in player in the Miles Boykin deal from Baltimore, but it turns out he is better than the right guard we currently have on the roster, so he will probably be starting. I'm not sure if that speaks to the lack of talent on the offensive line or the fact that we were able to pull in a 26-year-old starting right guard. I guess time will tell. Now that brings us to James Daniels, who is our youngest and actually best lineman on the entire team. So this guy's going to be here for the remainder of it. He's a great player. We just need to work on his power a little bit, and we'll get him there. At right guard, we still have Jermaine Ifedi. He is going to turn into more of a swing backup tackle now. He's going to be able to play the inside and the outside. Now, his pass blocking could be better, but given what we had last season, it'll actually be an upgrade. And finally, that brings us to our right tackle, Bobby Massey. 32 years old, 74 overall, and we're most likely going to have to replace him going forward. I just hope that he'll be able to handle the grind of this season against all these pass rushers we will face. Now, to the defensive side of the ball, the core stays the same, but there are a lot of new faces that you haven't seen before. Now, obviously, Akeem Hicks is going to be the left end again, and he's an awesome left end, but he's 31 years old, so we have to keep that in mind going forward. Now, he will be in a contract year, so I'm definitely going to have to keep that in the back of my mind. Now, we signed Porter Gustin out of free agency basically just to be a depth guy because he had some pretty decent numbers, I thought. Nothing overwhelming, nothing too crazy, but should be able to give us some quality minutes if he ever does get the opportunity. Which brings us to my favorite draft pick of the draft, Damian Sirmons. Now, he was a 7th round pick that was basically just passed over by every other team, and when I got him and saw these numbers, I was pretty excited. Now, they don't look like much to you, but to me, it looks like something that could be developed over time. If done correctly, Sirmons could turn into a situational pass rusher that could wreak havoc on opposing quarterbacks. Now, that is the positive spin of it all, and there really isn't much negative. He was a 7th round pick, and he has decent pass rushing numbers, so I guess we'll see how it goes forward. Now, we decided to bring back Jabal Sheard because at the end of last season when Mack went down, Sheard came in and actually did a very good job. He was good at block sheds, he was good at getting to the quarterback, so I felt he was worth one more year in the system, and we'll just see how it goes. And obviously, Bilal Nichols is the youngster who is going to be the starter at that position. He just needs some more time and development, and we can turn him into the stud that I think he can be. At defensive tackle, we still have Eddie Goldman. Eddie Goldman is a very good player, and he's going to be there for the duration of this entire online franchise. Now, behind him is our 1st round pick, Earl White. Now, given the contract status of Akeem Hicks and the depth of the defensive line, it made sense to draft Earl White with that first pick. He has pretty good power moves, he's really strong, and he has decent block shed. Given the time and development, Earl White could eventually be a stud defensive tackle and be a really big helping force on this defense. At left outside linebacker, I think you know who this guy is. Khalil Mack, 97 overall this year. Still pretty much has all his good stats intact. The only thing is, he needs to stay healthy. He missed a lot of time last year, and even when he was in the game, he wasn't doing too much. So this year, we are going to focus on trying to get him more positioned to make plays. He is really important to the defense, and he makes a ton of money. So we're hoping that his productivity skyrockets to the roof this year. Travis Gibson actually did good in the short period he was in the games. He just wasn't anything that was spectacular. He'll be a good backup for Khalil Mack. At middle linebacker, you got the usual suspects. You got Roquan Smith, and you got Joel Igbanaway. And I'm sure every single time I say that name, I'm saying it wrong. So we should just go ahead and stick with Iggy. Iggy sounds good. Now, both these linebackers are the stalwarts of the middle of the defense, and they both do what they need to do. Now, Iggy, even though he's a 68 overall, he plays beyond that 68, and I'm very pleased to have him there. Now, right outside linebacker, this is where it gets interesting. Robert Quinn is still here, but he is no longer an outside linebacker with that 79 speed. He is definitely going to be situational in the dime and nickel packages. So this is where we went out and signed Nathan Jerry and Malik Jefferson. Now, each of these three guys has three specific skill sets. You have Robert Quinn, who is a pass rusher, and you have Jerry, who's more of a pass coverage guy, and you have Malik Jefferson, who is more of the run stopper. Between these three guys, we are going to try to turn them into one solid superstar. Now, it's going to take some substitutions, and it's going to take some finagling around, but I believe between these three guys, we can get the production that we need from that position. And trust me, I know that I could be overthinking this, and this is the experimental. But if this plan goes the way that I think it will, then this will definitely solve our issues at that outside linebacker position, and then maybe we can go get another one in the draft, or we can get another one in the free agency. Cornerbacks. Kyle Fuller is still here, but he's 29 years old, and he is on a contract year, so this is something we're going to be monitoring going forward. He still has all the skills this year, but we don't know what his regression is going to do by next season. Jalen Johnson is primed and ready at 22 years old to become the #1 cornerback in Chicago, and we will continue to build him with every intention of making that a reality. We went out and signed Trevor Williams in free agency to be more of a fourth cornerback. As you can tell, his numbers are just so-so. Now, Tony Brown is going to be the slot cornerback for the second straight season, and we're hoping that he could turn into a second cornerback by possibly next season if Kyle Fuller is no longer around. But that is a stretch, and I understand that completely. We may end up having to go to the draft on this one, or may have to go into free agency or even make a trade to possibly accomplish that goal. But we are a fan of Tony Brown because he has all that speed, and we can still work on that man and zone coverage. On the back end of this defense, you know that name, Eddie Jackson. He's 27 years old now, 90 overall, and he still is a very, very solid player. I believe we're just going to need a few more game-changing plays from him to really make him more effective. At the other safety position, we got Jaquiski Tart. I'm not even sure if I'm saying that right, but he showed that he has really good zone, pretty decent speed, great awareness, so we just decided to upgrade Lucas on this one. Lucas played very well considering that he was only like a 70 overall most of the season, and most of his numbers weren't really good, so he played beyond that. I believe if Tart can come in there and do a little bit more than what Lucas did, then we are good on that back end. At kicker, we decided to let Pinheiro go, and it's funny, we went out and signed Cairo Santos, who's the actual Chicago Bears kicker, so we made a real-life signing, and he has pretty good kicking power, so that was the biggest selling point. Punting-wise, we just jumped out there, we looked around, and then it turns out that Tyler Newsome was already on the practice squad, so we just went ahead and signed him to a contract, and we said, hey, we'll give you 1 year or 2 years to show us what you can do. You're a Notre Dame guy, and we know we give them guys some love. So let's see what happens here. Now let's go ahead and take a sneak peek at the schedule. Our first game that we have on tap is going to be against the Cleveland Browns and Grady. He is a solid user who has turned that team into something pretty good, but we'll get more into that prior to our first game against him. In our second game, we'll be facing the Los Angeles Rams, who we faced last season and got a win over. Game 3 will be against the Pittsburgh Steelers and a solid user who actually picked up Tyreek Hill in the offseason. So, yeah, that's something that happened. Next game is against Mayer and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I'm sure he remembers that we got into the playoffs and he didn't. Then we have division rival Minnesota Vikings, which we took 2 from last season. And then the game that I am circling on my calendar. This is the game that we are looking forward to, is in Week 6, and the team that knocked us out of the playoffs. This is our revenge game, and for sure, the one we want to win the most. Then we have the hated Green Bay Packers, but this is a new user Green Bay Packers, so we're really not sure what to expect. But we're definitely going to be looking to beat them because it's the Green Bay Packers, and everybody knows about the Bears and Packers. And after that, we have Mufasa and the Cincinnati Bengals. He's a solid user, and he's still looking to build that Cincinnati Bengals team up, and I'm sure he's going to want to win against us. And then we face the Super Bowl champion Dallas Cowboys and Dottie Hop. He's a solid user, and at this point, We're hoping that we're going to have a good enough record that if we lose this game, we can roll into the bye week and we can lick our wounds. But we're not going to be looking to lose it. We're going to be looking to try to knock off the defending Super Bowl champions. We'll face the Packers and the Lions coming out of the bye week. And where that Lions game is always a tough game, as last year we split 1-1. After that, we'll see the 49ers, who I believe struggled last season, and they'll be looking to turn that around. Then we'll be facing the league founder and commissioner of our league, Moshe Damas, who is going to be running with the Arizona Cardinals, and he made the playoffs last season, so this is going to be a tough game. And then if Madden didn't think our schedule was tough enough with all these playoff teams and the defending Super Bowl champions, they give us the team that lost in the Super Bowl, the Baltimore Ravens. Now, this user has been the most consistent user in our league for years now. Playing Trey is never easy, and this year won't be any different. And then we hit Week 16, in which could be a showdown to determine who gets into the playoffs. Sully and those Lions are definitely going to be doing their thing, and it's going to be a tough one. We'll finish the year out with the Vikings. As I said before, we went 2-0 against last season. There are a lot of games on the schedule that is very tough, and while we would love to win 10 to 11 games, realistically, we may be looking at 8 or 9, maybe even 7. Who knows? The schedule is that tough, but we have to play the games and we'll see what flies. Now, before I leave, let's go ahead and do some upgrades for players after the preseason. Tariq Cohen picked up an upgrade, and of course, we're going to be shooting for his elusive back skill because that's just the best thing we can do for him. +2 awareness, +1 carry, and +1 spin move. Not very good upgrades there. Pretty disappointing, actually. Which brings us to Miles Boykin, who has really good numbers. He could use some route running, and it would be cool to get some release, and acceleration, and some more speed on him, but we're not trying to be greedy here. +1 acceleration, +2 awareness, deep route, release, and spectacular catch. I will take those. I will absolutely take those. That'll bring his acceleration to 91 and his release to 79. So that's pretty good numbers. Earl White, the rookie, is going to need some block shedding and some power moves. He's definitely going to be a project that we're going to need to build up if he's going to be the monster that I think he can be. So we'll go ahead and fire off with a little run stopper to start with, and hopefully we get lucky and get some power rushing and some block shed in there. 2 block shed and play recognition. I mean, it's not too bad. I would have preferred to get block shed with some power moves, but it is what it is, and it gets him up to an 80 overall block shed, and that's a good start. And finally, that brings us to Eddie Jackson. He could use a little bit of speed, he could use a little bit of tackle, and some block shed. So you would think that I should probably go for run support, but I just can't bring myself to do it. So we're probably going to go with hybrid and hopefully get some speed on him. +3 man, +1 tackle, +1 zone coverage. I mean, I can't be upset with what he got. Would I have loved to get a speed boost? Absolutely. But it is what it is. He's 91 overall, still a force in the back end, and we're lucky to have him. So that brings us to the end of the Season 2 preview. So thank you for watching. Make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and we'll see you Week 1 when we face the Cleveland Browns.